I would like to welcome our final keynote speaker of this year's European Public Policy Conference, Stefan Tito. He's the Secretary for the Environment and Climate Protection for the City of Berlin. And Mr. Tito has worked many years in research on sustainability in Europe before he has gone into politics. He has been in public service for more than 20 years in a variety of functions on the state level, on the federal level. And since the year 2016, he's been on the city level here in the city of Berlin, where we're obviously broadcasting this conference from this year. So throughout all of this, Stefan, his work has always centered around ecologically transforming our society and our economy towards more circularity. And he's also a member of the German Green Party. And if you're following German politics, the German Greens are actually on track to be very likely be part of the future German government. So certainly something to look forward to share his insights on the circular economy today. Welcome, Stefan.
Okay, thank you so much. Just let me manage the technique. I just want to share my screen. Just a moment, I hope. So, is it okay? Can you see my...
We can see it perfectly. We just needed our tech team to unmute ourselves. So I think we just give it a go. Stefan, start whenever you want. We're leaving the stage and coming back for Q&A with you. Or if you have any other questions, we're there 2 more seconds.
Okay, so thank you. Let's start. Thank you so much, dear students of the Hertie School. Thank you very much for this invitation. It's an honor for me to hold a keynote on this third conference day where we speak about local policies for circularity. As you know, Berlin is a German federal state and at the same time a city and especially the German capital. In the role of the local government, we aim to foster circularity in the capital region in line with recent European policies such as the European Green Deal and the European Action Plan for Circularity. At first, I would like to present you the goals and principles which are the base of our circular policies. Also, I want to emphasize how important local governments are on the society's way to circularity. Then, I want to focus on our fields of action and our best practices to foster circularity here in Berlin. So as this is already conference day number 3, you should be already aware of circular goals and principles, so I want to keep this part short. So we aim to protect our environment and the climate by responsible use of resources. Therefore, we need to minimize our consumption of primary resources. It also entails closure of material loops so that we can achieve real circularity. Circularity allows us to realize a decoupling of economic growth from environmental harm. The negative environmental impacts of our economic activity should become as little as possible. And real circularity and resource efficiency are one of the keys to climate neutrality and also via our waste treatment. By energy recovery, we can realize greenhouse gas savings. The underlying principles of our circular and zero waste public policies are to reduce or prevent waste whenever it is possible, to reuse products and materials as long as possible, to recycle resources and materials as long as possible, to recover waste that can't be prevented energetically, and of course to absolutely minimize waste disposal. Well, the local government can assign specific rules and use certain instruments to foster circularity. Of course, Berlin as a federal state acts as a regulator, for example, for waste and construction regulations. and waste and infrastructure manager. With its proximity to the local population and the economic stakeholders, it makes sense that the local government promotes circularity to them and connects and advises them. Especially, the city can support the local reuse and repairing infrastructure. The local government also realizes pilot projects, acts as a role model, and uses its market power to foster circular products. And finally, the local government has the possibility to fund projects and develop financing programs. So, what are typical fields of action in local circular policies? On the one hand, we implement general measures for circularity. And on the other hand, we implement specific measures concerning the built environment, consumer goods and packing, food, the fields of waste management, as well as the field of energy, including transport and mobility. But today, I do not want to focus so much on energy, as this speech is not about our energy and climate protection program. I rather want to concentrate on how we can reach circularity for all the other resources that exist and which are, of course, very relevant in terms of climate gas saving as well. So let me tell you about the actions field 2A and E. In terms of general measures, we have implemented a monitoring system for urban material and waste flows to obtain an overview of the most resources-intensive streams, recycling quota, and climate gases. In 2020, our Senate has officially decided to foster zero waste goals, which legitimates further circularity measures. Furthermore, the city of Berlin takes part in international city networks and has implemented green public procurement regulations. I'm going to tell you more detail about these last two aspects. The city of Berlin takes part in international city networks, for example, Eurocities and C40. Eurocities, maybe as you know, is a network of large cities in Europe to foster the economic, political and social development. Over 140 of Europe's major cities participate in this network, and the goal is to foster a better quality of life. Eurocities is one of the most influential EU city networks with multiple opportunities to engage with and influence EU initiatives and policies. This happens particularly on urban development and more recently on the EU Green Deal. Berlin is very active in some working groups to contribute its experience, but also to learn from other cities, which is important as well. Recently, the EU started a new European Circular Cities and Regions initiative, so that circular policies will soon be addressed in a more explicit way. Another example for our international relationship is the C40 Cities Climate Leadership Group. When it was founded, there were 40 cities. Now there are almost 100 members. The C40 network represents 1/12 of the world's population and 1/4 of global economy. C40 is focused on tracking climate change and driving urban actions that reduce greenhouse gases emissions and climate risks, with increasing the health, the well-being and economic opportunities of urban citizens. Different teams of Berlin's public administrations are taking part in C40 working groups where they discuss, exchange and learn from each other. Berlin signed different declarations to commit itself to higher goals. Let me also tell you more about our green public procurement. Every year, the city of Berlin spends about 4 to 5 billion euro by different products. The ranges from paper, pencils, laptops to city buses. The massive purchasing power can be used to protect the climate and the environment. It can be used to create lead markets for environmental products and services, and it can be used to promote innovative, eco-friendly products. The administrative regulation, procurement and environment applies to all parts of the Berlin administration and to Berlin's public companies. It offers an assistance in the procurement of environmentally friendly products and services. The life cycle approach is most relevant in the regulation. This means to not only consider the purchase price, but all the costs which occur during the life of a product. These are the purchase price, the operating costs, as well as the end-of-life costs. These green public procurement regulations are well known among the Berlin procurement agencies. Throughout a study in 2015, we could already prove that green public procurement has a significant environmental and financial impact. We compared the effects of environmentally compatible procurement with conventional procurement. And the results were a greenhouse gas reduction by 47%, which translates into 250,000 tons of CO2 equivalent. The result is material savings. For example, wood savings of 9,000 tons and natural stone savings of 2 billion tons, as well as cost savings of around 38 million or billion. In German, million. Now that I have presented our general measures for circularity, let me deep dive into single action fields. One of the most important action fields for circularity is the built environment. This sector causes 22% of raw material consumption here in Berlin and therefore has a great potential for saving materials, reducing waste and climate gas emissions. In this field, we can achieve a more responsible use of resources if we allow these three principles. Firstly, by the use of sustainable construction materials. This means that they are either secondary materials who have been recycled or regained, as recycled concrete, for example, or that they are taken from renewable resources, like wood, which are gained in a responsible way, of course. Until 2030, we can save 90% of new construction materials by the use of recycled construction material. And this means a significant reduction of raw material and energy consumption as well in this sector. Secondly, we can save resources if we prefer reconstruction measures to new buildings and if we prefer selective deconstruction. This means to deconstruct an old building into single, still usable constructional elements in order to reuse them in other buildings. Finally, we also need to separate construction waste at its source of generation and to produce high quality recycling materials out of it. So what measures do we implement to foster circularity in the field of constructions? Here are a few examples. Based on our green public procurement regulations, we practice sustainable public construction in Berlin. For example, we used timber constructions for new school buildings because the sustainable production of wood takes much less energy than the productions of cement and steel. This helps to save climate gases and not renewable resources. We also include sustainability requirements to our construction regulations. We offer information and organize events on sustainable construction. We try to motivate also the private stakeholders, not only the publics. And also we realize pilot projects and architectural competitions. One of the biggest projects in Berlin, which is going to be realized at the area of the former Tegel airport within the next few years. In this area, the so-called Schumacher residential district will be constructed in an ecological way. It is going to be the world's biggest timber construction project and demonstrate the state-of-the-art of sustainable urban design. On the other hand, we are going to realize the so-called Urban Tech Republic. It's an industrial science park, even on the airport, former airport. To save materials in this construction process, former airport construction materials are going to be reused. So let me now tell you more about another important field of action for circularity in Berlin, the field of consumer goods and packaging. So here again, our green public procurement is very important to mention. The public administration buys environmentally friendly consumer goods. Also, we foster the regional reuse and repairing infrastructure and offer people information as well as consultation on waste reduction. And furthermore, we support zero waste shopping initiatives and the reduction of single-use plastics, for example, by strengthening reusable, turnable cup systems. Let me again give you some insight into one of our best practice concerning consumer goods. In September 2020, my Senate department launched a reuse department store that both sells items that might otherwise get thrown away and act as an education center encouraging repair and reuse. The store covers over 7,000 square feet and sells used and upcycled clothing, furniture, phones, and other electronic stuff. The city pays rent for the floor spaces itself and selected merchants to run stalls. In an attempt to reach beyond the usual people who already patronize second-hand shops, the store's location is also significant. It's not in an especially hip location or a flea market, but within one of Berlin's most established middle-of-the-road department stores in the Karstadt am Hermannplatz. We plan to open more of these kinds of stores. These city-run stores won't just be standard second-hand markets. We hope to use the stores to anchor the reuse of goods in the urban society. We want them to function as centers to educate and spread tips on reuse, especially to sections of the public that aren't currently much involved in the circular economy. None of the products these merchants sell are new to the market, but the city-run reuse store stands out in one important aspect. Many of the items on sale have been recovered from the city's recycling system or are from sources that might not normally find their way to stores. This includes recycled electrical goods that have been fixed, checked, and come with a 1-year warranty. The store also sells products and goods that have been made exclusively by upcycling discarded materials. Another important action field for circularity that I want to highlight is the field of food. In 2020, the Berlin Senate decided the city's nutrition strategy. A big part of this strategy is to make the nutrition in public canteens and during public events sustainable, but also to foster our regional food innovation system and regional food chains. Furthermore, strategy comprises educational projects as well as projects to minimize food waste. Finally, it also aims to increase the food product transparency. This helps consumers to have a more sustainable nutrition. Last but not least, of course, I want to underline the importance of waste management policies in order to reach circularity. We all know that circularity is only possible with the right waste management. Some of our measures in these fields are to optimize the separated waste collection, especially for organic plastic and packaging, as well as for bulky waste. There is still too much residual waste from private households and the industry with unlifted potentials for separation, recycling, and recovery. We are working on that to increase the recycling quota. We are also going to increase our recycling capacities and to modernize them. Furthermore, we want to achieve more high-quality energy recovery, for example, by increasing the production of surrogated fuels from organics. Therefore, we are about to increase the amount of separately collected organic waste. It will also be very important to further implement the industrial waste resource regulations in Berlin. It's a very important point. So here is another best practice. I already mentioned the surrogated fuel, which is being produced from organic waste. We use this to refill half of our public garbage trucks here in Berlin, and this allows us to save 9,000 tons of climate gases every year. So we want to make Berlin become a zero-waste city. And zero-waste city means a 20% reduction of residual waste from private households till 2030, 250,000 tons of greenhouse gas savings per year, and that we are going to save 1.4 million tons of construction materials per year. So now I've given you a broad overview to what we do in order to foster circularity and what other cities also might adopt from us. Of course, we already have a lot to do trying to lift the potentials for resource saving in all our fields of actions. But to end up this presentation, I would like to talk about new ideas to continue our journey towards circularity. I think in the future we might take a deeper look at single value chains. We could try to systematically transform them as a whole, for example, textiles or electronics. This would also mean to collaborate more with economic stakeholders. Generally, we could strengthen our efforts to foster a green, resource-efficient local economy. And last but not least, we might engage even more in promoting sustainable consumption patterns and raising the awareness of the scarcity of resources. Together, we need to work out more innovative solutions for a resilient, environmentally friendly future, locally and globally. Thank you so much. And now I just want to finish this presentation.
Okay, hello, Mr. Tito. Hello, Mr. Tito. We're back again with you. Thank you so much for your presentation. And right now we would want to go over some questions we heard in the chat and also some other questions I have here with me. And maybe the first question would be, you talked about some pilot projects, for example, the department stores. And from a sustainability or circularity perspective, what is the most innovative or to your mind, the most favorite project which we have in Berlin right now regarding circularity or innovation? Like what's the thing you like most and where you're really passionate about?
Okay, I think really the most innovative project for me is is on the one is a reuse store in the Karstadt am Hermannplatz, and we have also a very big shopping mall from the BSR, which is called Noch Mall. And I think what I really like is that it spreads the awareness of how important this issue is directly into society. What we planned is also to build a reuse Baumarkt. Actually, I don't know the English word for Baumarkt. To spread out this thinking not only on consumer goods but also on construction goods and materials.
I think would be something like construction material store in that way. Okay, thank you. Maybe for these shops, you talked about these shops. Do you have any numbers, how many people actually go there or how good it is going?
Actually, I have no numbers in the moment because it was quite complicated because of the Corona crisis, of course, and also these shops had been closed. But there was large traffic before Corona times, and even now, most of our partners decided that they really want to stay at that places. So the pilot project is finished now, or will be finished in a couple of weeks. But the store, I think, will continue because most of the partners realized that they earn money with this. And I think this is a very good experience that pilot projects really brings things into change.
Okay, thank you. I think we have here in the chat another question which is really connected to this. The question is about how to include the private sector. Because I think when you talked about your partners, that's probably also private sector, but a lot of other things you talked about were rather public sector initiatives where you change what you buy, how you do things. So how to include the private sector into all these initiatives to make the city holistically, also in the private sector, sustainable and circular?
I think this is a very important issue. And on the one hand, we have the sphere of regulations, and we are working in the moment just to make here some progress. But I think even so important is the awareness of the private sector. And I just started an initiative to our Senate, which is responsible for the economic sphere. And we want to try to make to intensify our networking and to bring up this discourse that also the private sphere is much more engaged than, or will be more engaged than they have been in the past.
That sounds really cool. I think we have some people also from private sector in our audience, so just listen to this, see what you can take over from this. Also, I think in the coming months and weeks, we are going to follow what your department, what Berlin does in this sphere. But we have a question that's not only focused on Berlin. It's actually Fine Cohn, who asks how a local politician, like I believe she is a local politician, and how she can encourage circularity in her small city. Do you have any advice for her, like for local young politicians who want to foster this topic?
I think what is really effective is this procurement, which we used, and not only in the past, and because step by step you can make this procurement more regulations. And I think what's also quite important is to make very deep network with all the initiatives, especially in big towns like Berlin. There are young, especially young people, which are really engaged in this issue. And they are really good partners just to start pilot projects and to spread out the awareness into the society.
I think that's a great answer, and I want to take on this procurement or regulation perspective you talked about. Sometimes, maybe to challenge this a bit, sometimes in Germany, it's like we have so many regulations, we have so much procurement law, and this hinders innovation. And what you, at least as I see it with the department stores and everything, you try to be innovative, you try to think newly. So what do you think there's like a problem with doing these regulations on the one hand and having innovation in the circularity on the other hand, or would you say that goes well hand in hand?
I think the regulations, it depends. It's not important to say how and to make it everything so complicated, but I think it's necessary to give innovation and direction. And so in this specific means the regulations are really necessary, giving the innovation and the direction to a zero waste aim. And how it operates, I think there can be a big range of different ways.
I had to wait until I was unmuted. You're perfectly leading over to the next questions always, Mr. Tito, because we have actually a question regarding zero waste, which is what concrete measures are taken or planned to achieve the zero waste goal, and maybe also how far on this way to the zero waste goal are you in Berlin right now, and when do you think the city might achieve that?
This is a good question. I think we are really on a good way, but as I mentioned, zero waste means in 2030 minus 20%. It's not zero, of course, but it's still necessary to have this long-term aim. And what we really need as a very innovative and as Berlin is regulation from European and from the national level. And I think there we need much more progress than we have had in the moment. That is already the regulation side. And the other side is how can we give much more awareness in the society of this big issue, because every one of us has the rubbish in his hand, and it's a decision at the ton. Throw away the organic in the bioton or in the other ton, and so we need a form of education and awareness, and without this, we will never reach zero waste aim.
So what I think in general, when we look at your numbers you showed us, for example, from the procurement law, like your success talk for itself. We had a greenhouse gas reduction of 47%, I think you said, a lot of material savings. So from my side, I hope Berlin continues in this way and Berlin continues to be that circular. I think we have time for one more question. Indeed, and that's a bit more holistically thought. I think our participants are all about circularity, but also about other social problems. And what Takyan La asked is, can the circular economy programs also be advantaging or give benefit to disadvantaged groups? And can they help to improve the situation of inequality in Berlin? I think these programs holistically overall.
Yeah, they can do, and it also already works. But I think it's important to address also the social side of this issue. But it's also important for us just to aim in the middle of society. Because the middle of society, middle class and the upper class, they are the main Verursacher, the main...
Maybe the main reasons are the people who actually produce the waste and the problems.
Yeah. So let us try to join the different spheres, the social sphere and also the economic and the waste sphere. But I think it's also important that we address the society as a whole.
Okay, I think that's already our time, Mr. Tito. Thank you so much for giving us these insights from Berlin. Thank you for answering all the questions from my side and from the chat. Is there anything you want to give our participants with them for the rest of their Sunday?
I think no, it's just a nice theme and a big issue. So thank you very much for this conference. It's really great that students all over the world are concerned with this topic.
Okay, then thank you very much for giving us some minutes or actually some hours of your Sunday. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. We are going on here right now with continuous moderation and leading over to the next topic. So thank you, Mr. Tito.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.